again, everybody. Welcome to Conversations of Connection, Mental Wellness, Sports, and Life. We're delighted to have you on board. We've got yet another great show as far as we're concerned. I'm Scott. This is the good Dr. Nina. How are you, my friend?
I am good. How have you been?
Well, so far, doing
good.
well. Yeah.
Yes.
The new year continues on, but it's going fast too.
I know.
New Year's resolutions like 2 weeks ago, for Pete's sake.
Yeah, a little bit.
Here we are in March. Go figure. Well, tell us about our great our guest. Okay.
I am very excited. Dr. Nick Andreas, and he has been in the sports industry forever, working with the Dallas Stars for over 10 years, in addition to professional athletes, all levels, and the NBA, the NFL, Major League Baseball, and other sports.
Yeah, even Major League Soccer. When I saw his bio, I thought, my gosh, he's got the top 4 sports and Major League Soccer as well. That was pretty impressive resume.
Yes, he's doing all that and more as a physical therapist.
And of course being on our show too.
And being on our show. and working with elite athletes and just starting his own business. And now he's here to talk about kind of his journey as a physical therapist, working with these athletes, and really how this all, affected and influenced their mental health also. And so we're excited to have Dr. Nick here today.
Awesome. Thanks.
Hello there. How's the introduction? Did we get it all?
I was going to say that's more impressive than I could have ever imagined.
Would you like to add anything?
I was going to say, do I have to add an extra $100 to that I gave you before the show here?
Well, I tell you what, when I think of where you're from, here we are in the great state of Texas, and you're from Minnesota, where we like to think of warm weather down here. You are kind of used to what goes on in the cold weather, but I think most impressively, what really impressed me is the fact that you spent some time at the Mayo Clinic, and you talk about great facilities when it comes to the world of medicine. Top 5, certainly top 3. Some say maybe the best in the entire country, but it's got an incredible reputation, and you were there, so good for you.
Thank you. Yeah, it was a great experience, and I think you kind of take it for granted when you live 30, 45 minutes from it growing up in Minnesota. But after being away from it, I think you have a lot more respect for what we were actually went through from an education standpoint, from the facilities, and just the mystique about it. Again, obviously great medical centers here in Dallas and all over the U.S., but again, a little bit biased of now looking back on my time there, like, wow, this was pretty impressive, and the things I learned there have carried over. And I look back very fondly on my 3 years spent there in Rochester. Now, the weather and things like that, we could, that's a different topic of conversation. Some of those, negative 30-degree wind chill days aren't missed at all. Yeah.
Well, you know what? Obviously, you're very gifted and passionate about this field, physical therapy. Where did that begin? Did it start early on that you wanted to do this? What made you want to go into the field?
I think the main reason is I recognized when I was probably junior, senior in high school that maybe college sports were in the were a possibility for me, but as far as making professionally, it's that's probably not for me. But I knew that I wanted to keep athletics in my life. I was the kid growing up that I'd watch, ESPN Sports Center on repeat, and I'd watch the same episode 3 times that morning. My mom would be like, "You've already seen these highlights," and it was just something that I loved dearly with sports, and again, all sports. And also then as we got further in my athletic career, of the drive to get better and push yourself, and so I was like, how can I stay in the sports realm and keep that passion alive and get back to sports in itself? And I landed on physical therapy. Thought about athletic training, thought about being a physician, but physical therapy seemed to be the best balance as far as the amount of time you get to spend with an athlete. Especially you think at some now these post-operative rehabs that are going 9, 10, 11, 12 months. You're the person that's spending the most time with that athlete as they're getting back. And so again, just the relational aspect of it. Whereas I feel like we're some physicians, surgeons, again, not maybe a bigger overgeneralization, but they see you at the 6-week mark, the 3-month mark, the 6-month mark. It's very spaced out. Whereas physical therapy, again, if I had my way, I see you 3-4 times a week. And again, it's more than just the physical aspect of it. It's I go and visit, my clients and things like that when they make it back to sport. And that's the part that I think is kind of
that relationship.
Yeah, exactly. The relational side of sport, of the rehab, as well as the physical side of it, is kind of what made it an intriguing field to work in.
And my assumption would be, building this relationship with them, you have a safety, and they feel very safe with you. So I'm assuming that you became their therapist on some level, a little bit.
Yeah, I think
where they talked with you a lot about things.
Yeah, you learn a lot. What kids are going through, especially again, we see again work in pro sports, but also work with high school athletes. And again, I think that's the wild part is I have patients that I've seen that they were 14 and now they're 22, and to see those life changes that they've gone through, and where they're going to school, and the breaking up with boyfriends, and Just those things are, again, makes it more real from a personal standpoint, and you to kind of become like friendship. Like, sometimes I kind of like talk with my wife, like, I don't really have a lot of like friends outside of work because I have so many friends because of work, like
Right.
because of that, like, hey, just because you're done with PT, like I have people I'll get together for dinner and have drinks with because we became such good friends during the rehab
Yeah.
process, which has made it really fun. And then even, some of the pro athletes that I've worked with that have now gone on to retire, still keep in contact with them or text them on like the, different birthdays or like
That's
when
really
my kids have a birthday. And so just the relational building that happens within physical therapy, I think is really fun.
You've used the word relationship
Mm.
10 or 12 times already here.
Yeah.
And obviously that's very important. So I have great respect for that. That said and done, how about you as far as most rewarding? Same letter, different meaning. How about it? As you look back, all the things you talk about, these incredible relationships you've had, whether it was with somebody that you went to school with, whether you played ball with, whether you've worked with, whether you've been their physician of sorts, and gone through the therapy with them. What's the most rewarding thing? You come home at night and you put your head on the pillow and think about where you were and what you did and the difference that you made in so many people's lives. What comes to mind?
I think the most rewarding thing for me is seeing people have enjoyment in their passions. Like, again, most of the people that are playing sports enjoy what they do, whether it's the elite level, goaltender that's making it back from an injury. Seeing him have success, see him, celebrate with his teammates. Like, I think that's what gives me joy. And it's not from like a me standpoint of like, I was the reason he did that, but it's, again, help give him the confidence, help give him the tools to then achieve his success. And I think that's the part that gives me joy when I go home at night is other people recognizing their enjoyment and they feel fulfilled with what they're passionate about.
Fulfilling their purpose in life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And my assumption would be you see some athletes that are pretty defeated. They come see you.
Mm-hmm.
And you just said you build up their confidence.
Mhm.
I know you do it, obviously, with the work that you do, but what about with the things you tell? What are the things they're struggling with, and how do you get them to a place of feeling like, yes, I can get back to the sport, or yes, I can do this? What do you do?
I think one of the ways we try to do it at our practice, when I try to do, is I try to give people small wins, like give them successive things to build upon, and try to make it something that they can identify with their sport with. Whether that's the exercise, like, hey, this is when you're doing your stick handling on the ice, like we're doing a similar type of exercise, and you can do that without any pain, and you're doing that very well. And it's like, shoot, like they start to get kind of out of this negative thought cycle of like, oh man, I'm never gonna make it back. Like, there is, again, a lot of steal a little bit from like the automated negative thoughts that a lot of like athletes will then tell themselves because they have put so much pressure on themselves. Now you add the rehab component of now I'm injured, and there's part of my identity is lost. If I'm up at pro level, I have now contract situation. Like I'm trying to get back for next year because if I don't, then I might not get a deal. So you have all these other things. So I try to build in small successive wins along the way, and you can't control for all the outside factors, but build that into their rehab. So then they start to build confidence in themselves, and then they start to recognize, okay, maybe I'm not as defeated as I thought from this injury.
Just all you shared with us already, just in the short period of time, I'm sure Dr. Nino would think of the same thing, though. You have been a support staff for all of them, physically, but I think also mentally and emotionally as well. So that said and done, role models that you might have had as a child, mom, dad, and you talk about some of the people that you keep in touch with that were friends or people you worked on or people that are just in the business with you. Any names that we might recognize or fellas that you look to as role models growing up?
I think role models growing up, like I looked up, again, from a kid from Minnesota, again, from an athletic prowess standpoint, I looked up to guys like Chris Carter, guys like Kevin Garnett. Those are probably the two most famous ones, guys like Torrey Hunter. And I actually, had the chance to like meet Torrey Hunter, later in life, and it's like unbelievable guy, unbelievable human. He's like everything you'd like think of like when you're growing up as a kid of like, all right, he's a good guy off the field too, right?
Yeah.
But I think the biggest thing that stuck out to me with them is like they had such a passion to win, passion for success, and again, maybe they didn't really necessarily achieve that on the team that they were on, but they seemed to pull other guys with them. I always look at the example of Chris Carter brought Randy Moss along. Like everyone had like the skeptical nature of like, that's why the Cowboys didn't draft him. I know we're here in Dallas, and that's a topic of debate at times. But like Chris Carter was a role model to him, helped bring him along. while also being an unbelievable player on the field in his own right. So those are probably the guys that I looked up to from an athletic standpoint. From just a occupational side of things and like work ethic, things like that. Like my dad and my grandfather are two people that I look up to a lot. They had a very strong work ethic, type A personalities, came from like a working class, and kind of instilled a lot of that in me again, to work hard, that you may not, have all the gifts or skills or things like that, but you can at least work hard enough and you can outwork other people. And that was something that always kind of stuck with me.
And here you are today. Look at you. Made a difference. When you think back of your 10 years with the Dallas Stars, and I'm sure you've been in the locker room with them, and what do you think? I mean, there's still that stigma. They don't want to ask for help, for some men, many men. What do you think that is, and how do you think we can kind of break through that stigma today with mental health and mental wellness for the athletes, especially men athletes?
Yeah. I definitely agree. I think it is hard for being someone in a space, like hard for myself to do that as well, as reach out for people from a help perspective. And again, I think the thing that we have to try to teach younger athletes, again, I think that's where you see the change, and like as sports develop, like the same, go back to like a technology thing, is like we used to do all these testing things, and our older players like this is never going to work, it's never going to work. And now like these kids grow up with technology in their hands. I think it's the same thing from an emotional and relational side of things, is like, at a young age, trying to intervene there so that then it becomes the new norm, instead of, forcing it upon them. Because that's one thing that I've also known too, is like you have to allow players a chance to take you up on the opportunity to talk about mental health and like their wellness. So you can't, push like, hey, like you're not playing well. Like, let's talk about your mental health. Like, let's talk about your mental health. Like,
Right.
Let's open the door to that. And I think, again, capturing at a younger age is, I think, the way we can really make the change in a locker room. And again, helping, athletes have self-compassion and self-empathy and not putting so much pressure on themselves all the time.
Yeah. And I like that it starts from the very beginning, start early on. And what about, that's early, but there's still college athletes and elite athletes that put a lot of pressure. I'm sure you see that with the pro athletes, that this pressure they put on themselves, and that self-talk. What have you noticed that's been really helpful when it comes to helping them with changing their self-talk and the negativity? What has been something you've noticed that has been helpful for you?
And this is going to steal from a colleague of ours, Chad Bowling, that always talks about the neutral mindset, and just kind of, again, telling yourself truths along the way, again, and identifying when you do have some of those, like, the negative self-talk or the pressure, and telling yourself, like, okay, I've done this before. I've played at the elite level. I've, been in pressure situations. I've done this before. And like giving yourself, that reminder, instead of just always like, oh, I'm not always. And again, I think, sometimes we have to remind our athletes too that you're not always going to be perfect. There are going to be laps in your, that's just part of life and a part of the journey, that you're not going to be perfect, and that sometimes good enough is good too. And so helping them recognize that, like, you don't have to put all that pressure on yourself. And again, that's outside of my practice as far as, teaching them those tools and skills of how to do that.
Right.
But again, I think the big thing that I've noticed is if I do recognize someone that's in that space, like, I'll reach out to someone like yourself, or to, like, having the resource of chat of like, hey, like, you mind like checking in on this guy? Like, and then I think y'all do a much better job than I could ever do as far as, getting them to open up and talk without just being like, hey, I think you need to talk to someone. So that was kind of what I would do when I would work, or if there's an athlete now that I work with, I have one now that I was like just trying to connect with, like, yourself and other people. So again, I think that's the other thing too, is recognizing what my limits are. Of like, okay, I can maybe pick up on maybe subtle cues of that they could use someone in the mental health space to talk about. But that's, again, not something I'm super comfortable with. And from a liability standpoint, I probably shouldn't be doing that.
You say you're not comfortable with it and liability and all that, but put that aside for a minute. Growing up, you talk about your dad, your grandfather, and this role models, whatever. What if I was to say to you, hey, as soon as we finish here, we're going to take you over to a couple of high schools, and we want you to talk to and address the students that are going to be involved in high school sports, or potentially move on to college sports. What are 3 things that you would share with them, with all the knowledge and the history of where you've been, what you've done, people that you've talked to along the way? And even though, as you say, this isn't your protocol, this is not who you are and what you're all about on a day-to-day basis, I get the feeling that you could have some pretty good advice for them about what they should do, what they shouldn't do. 3 things that come to the mind that they should do, and maybe 3 things that they should stay away from.
Yeah. I guess the thing that comes to mind is if you're considering, college athletics, or if you have the opportunity to do it, I would say go for it. I think one, just the community that sports brings with it. When you have instant, not instant friends, but basically you're in a culture that you have people, like-minded people. And, again, especially as a high school person, like you kind of built your identity around sports, and you can kind of continue that into, because I know that sometimes can be challenging of like, oh, I've been an athlete my whole life and now I've removed that from it. Like now I need to find something else. So I think, I would say go for it. Trying to think other things to tell high school athlete going into, I would say,
Mentally, emotionally, physically, whatever.
yeah, I would say mentally is, emotionally is enjoy the process, enjoy the ride. I think you hear from a lot of like former athletes of like it goes by quick, and it does. Like it's one thing, like, again, as a guy who's 36 now, trying to find a athletic outlet or competitive outlet, it's hard to do.
There's
And, like,
pickleball.
yeah, right. Like pickleball and some like cornhole or something like that. But enjoy every minute of it, and take time to enjoy the process along the way. And another one would be, I would say this is that playing sports in college will make you a better professional, because you will be challenged, you will be pushed harder than you are. And I think that builds grit, and that builds, the ability to do hard things, and we can do hard things. And again, the harder you push yourself and work yourself, and the more comfortable you get with the uncomfortable, which makes you, again, wake up at 4:30 and work out before you got to get kids out of bed and take them to school and all those things. You're like, you think back of like, remember the time when we did a 100-degree workout, like it was 100 degrees outside, we're doing wind sprints, people were throwing up, like I can do some really hard things, and I have done that. So it kind of builds that mental willpower.
Yeah, I wondered if you're going to get to that, because to me, that's preparation for life.
Yeah, it is.
And unfortunately, a lot of people that have not been involved in athletics in any way, shape, or form, guys or girls, they just they miss out on the opportunity to see how life really can be a challenge day in and day out. And having played in sports, I think does a great deal for doing that. 3 things, and I don't want to belabor this, but 3 things that you tell kids to stay away from. Make sure you don't do this, don't surround yourself with this, whatever. Anything come to mind? Kind of the do's and don'ts here.
Don't believe your own hype too much.
Okay.
I think one thing, especially now with NIL deals and things like that, some people
isn't that the
get
truth?
lost in who they are, and go searching for more the fame and monetary side of things instead of what actually brought them into their sport. So a level of humility, I think, is important too. So again, I guess, trying to kill your ego when you can, or at least recognizing when you do have an ego.
Good advice.
And then I would say find, well, I guess, we see a lot of people in sports that are not, sometimes from a practitioner standpoint, you might be able to, reconcile this a little bit, is that there are certain practitioners that want to be the person that fix people. They want to be the reason you are who you are as an athlete, and they'll reach out to you via social media, through email, anything like that. Is don't listen to outside voices that you don't know, or at least be very skeptical with them, because there are a lot of people here that claim to have all the answers when it comes to sports performance or mental performance, and they'll claim to fix you. And I can be, especially in my space of like, people are injured or hurt, like they'll take advantage of that vulnerability, and be like, oh, I'll be the reason you get back. I'll get you back. The person that actually has no credentialing whatsoever, or like, again, they're not out for your best interest, they're in it for their own interest to then use you to get to other athletes or use it to market. So I guess I would say, don't listen to the snake oil salesman, I guess would be the way to look at it.
Careful.
And then the last one, let's see, what would be another thing to tell athletes, is
Pressure.
yeah, pressure's on. This would be more of a general thing. I mean, I find, like don't neglect your nutrition. I know it seems kind of random and compared to where we talk and everything else, but that's one thing that I see a lot of athletes just neglect is their overall nutrition.
Really?
At a young age, because they can get away with a lot. Like they're like, oh, I can eat a cheeseburger before I go out to a basketball game, or I can, before I go to a football game. But I think, nutrition, one from like a performance standpoint is really important, but also from like a well-being standpoint. I mean, as being an athlete, when I eat well, I feel better. Like I feel like my workouts go better. Like all of these things from a mental standpoint feel better as well when I do that. I put myself in the right mindset. So I would say don't neglect nutrition. But
So you worked 10 years with the Dallas Stars, and obviously they felt very safe and secure with you. And I think when you feel safe and secure is because someone shows often that you care. And so you're obviously a very caring person. Where do you think that comes from, this care, this compassion that you have for athletes?
I think that would actually probably, my mom is a very compassionate person. That would probably be the person that exemplified that the most to me growing up. And I think the other one too is as I've gotten married and had children and things like that, I think that's helped grow that compassion bone even more. And yeah, I think those would be the people that have like exemplified it for me.
Let me jump on to what Dr. Nina said there. With that in mind, what are you going to share with your daughters? You've got 3 daughters. Do you, first of all, want them involved in sports? And secondly, what's the message that you as a dad now are going to share with them?
Yeah, I do want them to be involved in sports. We do have them signed up for my 5-year-old plays soccer and softball. And my 3-year-old just started soccer as well.
3 years old, huh?
Yeah.
Yes.
It was hilarious. We were supposed to have 6 players on the field, and at no point did we have 6 players, but we had anywhere from 4 to 8 on the field.
How did you around?
But anyway, I think what I would tell them is I want you to, pursue your purpose. Again, passions, I feel like kind of come and go, but I want you to pursue what you find like is your purpose. And you can find that as your guiding light. And I'll help support you, whether that is sports or not. Yes, I would love for it to be that. And I found like the more I push sports on them, the more they push back against me. Maybe that's just, 5-year-old pushing back against dad. But yeah, I would say, pursue your passion and whatever that is.
Yeah. Is your wife into sports?
She is. She played basketball in high school. She humors me on most of my sports watching. She enjoys football for sure. She went to TCU. So we follow the Horned Frogs. I've become a de facto TCU fan. Being both from Minnesota, we've watched the Vikings. We can get their games down here, and we watch them and enjoy that. So she's a big football fan. And now that it's March Madness time, I'm sure she'll fill out a bracket as well.
Oh, yeah.
Get in the spirit.
So you mentioned your 3 kids and you just launched your business. How do you create balance in your life? And I know that word is kind of like, no one really has balance, but how do you create that, like, I guess, to be balanced mentally, that you feel okay? What do you do for yourself to practice self-care?
So my self-care is still evolving, still trying to find a rhythm when it comes to some of that. But I enjoy working out. I like to run. I like to cycle. I like to weightlift. I like to eat fairly well. And then I do some breath work. I'll do some like the box breathing before bed. I'll do some reflection at night before bed, doing some different readings. And then in the mornings, I like to do some like spiritual. I'll do some daily devotionals and try to get myself kind of prepared for the day. But yeah, if anyone has a good answer for how they find work-life balance, I'd love to hear it.
It's different.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. I heard one person say there is no work-life, balance, but as far as finding work that gives you purpose, you come home in a fulfilled state, like that's the balance, like, because then you're in a better state for your kids and for your wife and for your family, is that you feel like you accomplished something, in your work that you can then come home and feel like I accomplished something today, and it puts you in a better state to interact with your family.
To know your why and be doing your why.
Yeah.
And so I like that. You have a really good self-care. Like, you're like, I do my devotional, I do some meditation, I work out, I do this. How did you learn all these things? Where do you think this came from for you?
He read your book.
Yeah. I'll have to read your book. because I think that's the main thing. It's evolved through one being just in the sports space of, again, finding that 1%, finding every little niche you can. I think it always, for me, it started, again, being played football in college, grew up in a weight room, so that was always easy to do. And then, like, as I've gotten older, again, I talked about my dad and my grandfather working hard. I think, again, the type A personality has its downfalls of stress and pressure. And, I definitely have gone through some bouts of like being anxiety. I would call it that, of like, oh, I have to do all these things for work or for the business. And recognizing that I can't always be everything for everyone else. And to be better for everyone else, I need to take care of myself as well. And so just through different readings, again, with how much information is out there podcast wise, and listening to people like yourself, Nina, and, some of the other, experts in the field when it comes to like longevity and health and wellness. And I think there is, kind of a revolution of like, we need to take care of like every aspect of our health, not just the physical aspect of it.
Yeah.
We're heading down the home stretch. So I'd like to ask you this question. When you think of who you are, what you've done, how you represent yourself in the community, how would you like us someday, if we suddenly saw your name there and we talked about legacy, we talk about what you left, what you did, the difference you made, what comes to mind? What would you like people to look upon you as when it comes to your legacy and all that you've achieved and all that you've accomplished, or things that you have yet to accomplish or achieve that you want to before all is said and done? What comes to mind? What's the on the tombstone, as they say, what do you want it to read?
That's a question. I would say maybe a quiet, humble leader who uplifted others. I think my biggest thing is, my dad taught me the same age as far as humility is, again, there's a lot of people around you, especially in sports and a team aspect, that help you get to where you're at. Like, you could make a great play, you could make all this, and everyone remembers that. But again, there's 59 minutes in another football game that other people were there to support you. And again, I think that would be, again, I'd like to be a leader as well. Again, I've kind of lead more from a example perspective, not from like a voice perspective. And this is even outside my comfort zone, talking about myself or being on a podcast. But I would think, some sort of like, humble leadership is kind of the motto I kind of like to use, and uplift others, uplift my family. Those are the kind of values. My mission statement, I guess, if you want to say, is written very close to that.
That's good. That's good.
I like
That's good. I do too. I like that. We need more responses like that from people.
Humble leadership. Yeah. It's probably gotten you where you are today because of that. You're at, how you see life and what you're hoping people see in you.
Why don't you wrap us up and take us home? I'm just going to say, and then I'll step aside for her to wrap it up. I've really enjoyed getting to meet you, and your last answer I thought was outstanding. So if you live with that purpose in your life, my hat's off to you, because, as you said, you're only 36. You've got a lot long tenure to go. So continued success, and thanks, first of all, for joining us, but more importantly, thanks for the difference you're making. It sounds great.
Nick, tell how everyone can get a hold of you or learn more about your company if they want to visit with you.
Yeah, so our business, we are Pro Sport Performance Therapy. We're in Frisco, Texas. Our website is prosportperformancetherapy.com. It's a long handle, I know. You got to spell it correctly. We're working on it. We've only been open about 8 months now, and we were talking with our website guy. Is there any other ones that are a little bit shorter?
Maybe go with the initials, PS.
Yeah, that one we tried to get that one. It was taken, so he's on the search right now for some. But that's our website. People can reach out to us there. We offer physical therapy services, sports performance services. Our Instagram is pro_sport performance therapy. And yeah, I'm not a big IG person. Again, just not my personality to post and all the things like that. I'm not that fun. I end up just reposting what our social media person does for our work. But those would be the two ways they can get in touch with us, or if they need any sorts of services, they can find us there.
Well, yeah, I've really enjoyed hearing you and your story, and thank you for being on our show today. Really appreciate it.
Yep.
Yep.
Great stuff.
All righty. Well, that's another edition of Conversations of Connection, Mental Wellness in Sports and Life. And tune in next month to see our next guest.
See you then. So long, everybody. Stay well.